Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Monster Hunter Wilds. Today we're back for another rankings video to see how things are doing in terms of speedruns and the weapons compared to one another. And we actually wanted to look at Tempered Mizu because, you know, he is a threat. He's been one-shotting a lot of people. The runs are a lot faster, but there's a lot of interesting things to look at there. But hilariously, there literally weren't enough runs for all the weapons to fairly judge anything on. You know, about half the weapons had a truly relevant run. So maybe we'll see next time, but we thought something would be fun. Beyond just looking at the updated rankings for Xochitl, you know, a week later, we thought we'd take a look with all the rules and limits off for one time. Like, pretty much the only thing we care about in these lists is that the players aren't using heroics, so we can, you know, fairly judge the weapons against one another. But it has such an incredible impact on the runs. So today we're going to take a look at all of these runs, even allowing heroics. So basically all the rules are gone. How fast truly is the fastest run for each weapon for Xochitl? Let's take a look. We kick this off, unfortunately, with Lance still at 14th place, with the same player actually as last week, just with an updated, better run. This is a 6 minute and 42 clear, with a familiar Artian dragon setup as before. Lance is just one of those weapons that definitely has lower ends of output compared to the rest of the weapons, but maximized, it's still very cool to see. The positioning and aim, the maximizing the uptime and how to use the counters in this fight in specific, like against, say, a big fire blast. The funny way that the player needs to do a 180 and face away from the monster to block the explosion more than the attack directly itself. The sad fact that even on a knockdown, the Lance just doesn't have enough DPS to actually break through the wings to cause the multi-knockdown. One cool detail about this run though is the maximizing the super attack, where the player basically runs in, uses the Lance charge to get right onto Xochitl, absolutely smacks them, then stays in way longer than I ever would think you could, before finally grabbing a pod and creating one safe pocket, then setting up mega barrel bombs and blowing that up at the front of Xochitl as the super finally ends. It's really efficient stuff, still worth checking out absolutely, but Lance output definitely lower than the rest it would seem. Which seems to be the case as we go into this next run with Hunting Horn, which has actually been at the bottom of the list for output and runs for quite some time. Hunting Horn isn't one of the most popular weapons right now, and it's also one of the hardest to play generally, so yeah, it doesn't exactly encourage a lot of runs, it would seem. On the bright side though, we do have a different runner than the usual one. QUA is amazing, but this time we have someone called Udra, who, after setting up with, yes, the Mizutsune Hunting Horn, swapping to the familiar arkveld Hunting Horn, and then triple stacking echo bubbles right under Xochitl to maximize those extra echo pops. These details have led to, well, a noticeable increase of the run from before. At a 5 minute and 43 second clear time, it's pretty decent, certainly for Hunting Horn in particular. I suppose it helps that arkveld naturally has that bit of dragon that is relevant in this fight. Moving on, we now have a familiar run with dual blades from about 6 days back now at this point. It's the same run with Yuki, with dual blades going hard against Xochitl. This is a shame because after checking all of the dual blade speedrunners that I could find through different languages and different posts, I was unable to find one that beat this incredible run by Yuki at a 5 minute and 33 second clear. So obviously, it's standing the test of time for the moment. It's a shame because, you know, dual blades is just so good at outputting element, but it's awkward and difficult to truly commit to that in the current meta. Either way, it's still an incredible run and well worth checking out. I expect to talk about Yuki and other title updates with their great runs. Something that has surprised me though is our next ranking, which is Hammer, with a 5 minute and 20 second clear, almost reaching that incredible sub 5 minute run. And this is insane because they did it with no palico, just as an extra challenge. So I suppose if they chose to bring one, it'd be an even better run. We might even see that sub 5 minute. But this run's so smooth and so impressive that they're able to do this time without a palico. Something that I appreciate with this run though is truly maximizing the DPS as much as possible, to the point where he's setting up mighty charges and sending those out right as he's going to get interrupted by a fire blast or, say, a channel, sacrificing health just to get that DPS out of the mighty charge in moments where, you know, you just can't hit the head anyway. It's also great to see that the hammer can indeed have enough DPS to break through the wings and cause the multi-knockdown staggers, with corrupted mantle maximizing that. And something kind of cool is the way that he would time a spinning bludgeon to set up the offset and hold it, and then just bowl through a roar. This was also the first run of the ones we've looked at where they would leave during the super just to go restock and set up again, which is a really cool trick, by the way, that we talked about last time, where basically you make the best use of a mantle early and then swap to a different one during the super when there's so much downtime anyway. But there really are some clutch moments in this run, like triggering a KO right as a fire explosion's about to happen to prevent that DPS time loss. Well worth checking out, Hammer users. Next up then, we have the incredible run here by a gunlance player with a sub 5-minute clear. 4 minutes, 51 seconds and 27 milliseconds. Something that you don't see a lot of in these runs for some reason is people actually using sneak attack on shia. Like, it's possible if you just carefully position and move around to the left side. Obviously, different weapons get really good sneak attacks to wake up the fight with. So it surprises me to see less people using it than maybe they even realize they can. It's a familiar start to the run in this case, where you see that double worm stake setup and just absolute DPS dump while using the corrupted mantle. And then, by the time that you get a chance to actually attack the wing arms for the first time, heroics is active now, giving that increased DPS. Before, we saw how they just didn't have enough DPS, gunlance, when the worm stakes are on cooldown. But with that help from heroics, it's just enough to bridge the gap to actually get the many multiple knockdowns of breaking the wing arm over and over. But these breakpoints are interesting, and it is obviously very impactful on the overall speedruns. It's a sub 5 minute with a gunlance, which might not have been possible otherwise. Moving forward, we have the heavy bowgun, with a run that we couldn't show in the last time that maintains an incredible state, under 5 minutes. At 4 minutes and 49 seconds, this heroics heavy bowgun run is still holding the top spot as far as we can find. I like the way the fight opens in particular here though. An early corrupted mantle and wyvern heart for just the absolute machine gun to the face, ignoring whatever shia is doing and just smashing the head as much as possible until it breaks. And this is with flaming ammo again, where I still wonder, will piercing stuff actually be more relevant for this weapon at some point? With what we're seeing with light bowgun and bow in particular getting the double effective hit zones, spreading through the head and into the arms, just makes you think, is there more potential with that or no? Anyway, heavy bowgun has a lot of potential here, especially with heroics like I was mentioning earlier. Everyone doesn't want to get hit when they're basically one-shottable, but if you're a ranged weapon, you do benefit from that distance of play. And with heavy bowgun actually able to auto-guard or perfect guard a lot of the attacks, that opens a lot of potential. Then you're able to just perfectly maintain high uptime on great hit zones that are simply out of reach from melee weapons in most cases. Like for example, during the super attack and those wind-up animations where things are just out of reach for most of us, this heavy bowgun user is able to shoot the exposed wing arms for basically free DPS during the super, which is pretty incredible. So check out the full run by Tatsufi and see what you can learn. Moving forward, we have the longsword with a 4 minute and 47 second clear time. We have that familiar opener with a sneak attack and the bomb to counter-strike for a fast level up. The perfect special sheath counter on the raw, instantly red. Then you got the corrupted mantle early for the crimson combo at the head, getting things into the next phase super quickly. And indeed, still just like the other player we looked at last week, maximizing the wounds for an instant focus strike, because with longsword and shia, it holds it in place for a little bit longer, extending those DPS windows, interrupting what it's about to do. It can be very clutch. I also really appreciate the on-off nature of the focus mode in this case, allowing the player to reposition the attacks, moving forward ever so slightly those little steps back into the optimal hit zone or location to keep this DPS going. Reminding me actually a lot of an SNS user, the basic attacks that allow you to slowly move while you attack. This longsword play is doing the same thing with its infinite combo. Pretty cool. And we are still seeing a little bit of Helmbreaker use too for the hyper armor and to ignore whatever shia is doing, reach a bit higher, that kind of thing. Where many weapons will leave the fight as well during the super, the longsword's able to instantly counter for free the first landing blow, then the follow-up explosion, then reposition in prep for the fire and create some safe pockets. It's very efficient stuff. Next up, I'm excited to show you guys this one, the switch axe run for 4 minutes and 31 seconds. It's interesting because this player is indeed using the shia switch axe for the white flame torrent extra 50 props. What's nice about this weapon is the fact that obviously it's got dragon built in, and it has slightly less max raw than an optimal setup for an artian. The decoration slots are a problem, but this player just goes for it despite that, enjoying those extra ticks of 50 damage pretty often. The best switch axe run we had from before was one that was using TA wiki rules, which means they weren't allowing themselves any of the benefits like boulders and say the mantles. And I said at the time, I think the potential for switch axe is a lot higher if you don't enforce those rules upon yourself. And so that's what we have today, shaving off a full minute off that timer because of it, which is awesome. Anyway, switch axe and shia, super effective. It's one of my fastest runs personally as well, this weapon. I don't have a 4 minute and 30 seconds run, but I do have an 8 minutes run, which is okay. So I can speak to it that there is some really nice benefits to playing switch axe against Xochitl. The sword counter is incredibly forgiving. You get this kind of hyper armor during a lot of the animations. So during rolls, you can counter it with the sword. During fire and the channel attacks, you can counter that with the sword. When the super comes out, you counter that with the sword, leaving you nicely positioned at the wing arm for good DPS. You counter the land, then the explosion after that. The whole time hitting the wing arm, then you create a safe pocket for yourself. Obviously, you'll be full releasing as much as you can for maximum DPS, and there's hyper armor during that, which can help you. But it's super cool the way this player triggers a sword counter to be able to reach slightly high up at the standing position of Xochitl after the super to hit the wing arm, just by placing a barrel bomb down like a longsword user. So clever. But the run is very impressive. I want to encourage you guys to go check it out. Next up then, we have the pretty incredible time of 4 minutes and 22 seconds from the Great Sword, with a familiar returning name making this incredible run. Opening up the fight very effectively, as per usual, corrupted mantle very early, getting a true charge smash straight into the head as early as possible, opening up a wound for the focus strike on that, which then causes a stagger. Very familiar openings for this weapon. 2 true charge slashes into the head so early, 2 wound focus strike pops. It's very fast into phase 2. With some ridiculously big hits of over 1,000 on the head, it's pretty fantastic. Leading early into a knockdown, which is then easily a wing arm shatter, which leads of course into another knockdown, so on and so on. This of course makes use of maximum might though to slightly increase that DPS, so all those hits are a little bit juicier. And then the thresholds for a stagger or a knockdown are a bit closer, leading to better DPS times and this faster run. And what's crazy is despite the fact that this greatsword user is very low health because of maximum might, and has used corrupted mantle, they don't actually leave during the super to put on a different mantle or restock or anything. They just keep going, shoulder tackling through the initial slam, somehow not dying despite the super low health, just to maintain that little bit more DPS. Getting not 1, but 2 big hits onto the exposed wing arm that's hanging there after the super's ended. Once again, an incredibly efficient run that you gotta go check out if you play greatsword. So let's move on to the next weapon. Moving forward then, we have another jump forward for Charge Blade, relying on heroics to get that increased DPS. And so setting up the fight by popping on Corrupted Mantle early for the health drain to get to that Corrupted Mantle health range. In fact, they wait a little bit before they go start the fight so that the Corrupted Mantle just perfectly activates heroics, and then they get it into phase 2 to stop the health drain. Very cleverly timed stuff. It's a super efficient vial fill, shield charge, and then perfectly set up on the raw. Then careful management with focus mode aiming and the kind of weird hitbox on the Charge Blade Sword Blade at times. Something I found interesting is the way that they would stay by the wall and roll perfectly, like just before the explosion lands. The fire shot of Xochitl, which keeps the monster essentially static, more than likely helping them maintain optimal DPS rather than letting it move around too much. I also thought it was interesting the way that they caused the multiple knockdowns. You know, from the first head knockdown into the break the wing arm knockdown. They did ED1 into ED2 into AED, which has a bit of a longer wind up animation, perfectly timed for the kind of fallback knockdown animation to start and complete, while AED's animation plays out, landing perfectly as the wing arm lands right in front of them. Just clever. Continuing on that concept, they actually swap to Hunting Horn during the super. So while there's that downtime, they basically swap to the Hunting Horn and give themselves some quick buffs, rather than say going back to camp to change mantle like many do, but enhancing their output in a different way, which they didn't want to waste the time on at the start of the hunt. And immediately pull down a boulder as the super ends, just barely clipping the wings of Xochitl for a knockdown, getting straight into a refill of the vials and setup, even only filling 3 vials just so they can get straight back into the whole ED combos. Truly, it's like watching someone squeeze out every little bit of downtime, every little animation timing to line up so well. So go check this run out. But above that, moving forward, we now have SNS with a 4 minute and 14 second clear time on Xochitl. This is absolutely comical and another showcase of how you can really maximize what you have. So what's really interesting about this run for me is the fact that they open with Rocksteady Mantle instead of Corrupted or Evasion. Why do they do that? Well, they drop some barrel bombs at the head of Xochitl mid DPS, and Rocksteady prevents them being knocked back by the explosion, just getting extra burst out at the start of the fight during that nice window, to be fair, when Xochitl is winding up, turning around, wasting time doing a roar. All of that is like a lot of free DPS, so by cleverly using Rocksteady Mantle and bombs, they're able to enhance that little period a little bit more. Anyway, by tanking hits of these explosions and the monster at the same time with Rocksteady Mantle, they never slow down the DPS, but at the same time, they do activate heroics by taking these hits. And yes, compared to others, they do actually go back to the camp during the super to restock and refresh things. That does heal them back up to full, unfortunately, but it does mean that they can get Corrupted Mantle for the rest of the fight. Anyway, a very early boulder pull down onto the tail for a knockdown, Corrupted Mantle straight into max DPS at the head and the wings. It always impresses me the way these speedrunners are able to pull down not one but both boulders without moving Xochitl from the starting position at the end of the super. It's just the way they turn the monster so the tail is just barely under the boulder for ultra efficiency. And by the time that the kill happens, that Corrupted Mantle is just barely running out, so they squeezed every little bit of value out of it for the run. But now that brings us to the top 3 weapons, starting with bow at sub 4 minutes for a run. Thanks to the benefits, of course, of something like heroics, which again are so good for a ranged weapon. I do feel like, more optimal use of your ranged weapons to maximize your output is gonna go far in fights like this against a bigger target where you can pierce through and hit multiple great zones. But you got those best hit zones like the hanging wing arms that are out of range for most of us that these players with their ranged weapons can just smack around. But the cool details about this run for me are the way that they're carefully positioning. Basically playing just under the chin of Xochitl and firing up allows them to spread that kind of wider shot of the double circles. Every hit landing into that nice optimal exposed head hit zone. We're seeing the volleys actually land on the head during the longer animations like standing there and doing the roar, or during any knockdown. By using tracer arrows and opening up multiple wounds, this player is able to fire through the head into the wing arms, and then have the shot go through multiple targets, going over to the tracer. They're playing this bow almost like it's a piercing shotgun though. The positioning and timing on these attacks, it's absolutely incredible. Positioning Xochitl so that when they use a dragon piercer to shoot through the wing arm, the dragon piercer goes through the arm into the boulder behind the monster, which drops it and knocks it down at the same time. Just incredible. So another run definitely worth checking out. But somehow we keep getting quicker. At our next placement, we have Insect Glaive, which is currently not the king of the list, but only barely. This is the same run that we looked at last week, so I'm not going to comment on it too much, which was a 3 minute and 59 second clear, sub 4 minutes, right? But the true fastest insect clear of Xochitl right now is by the player Zelvis, with a 3 minute and 48 second clear. Why we're not showing that though is because Zelvis has said in the description that they don't want the footage to be shared, so obviously we're going to respect that. It's a shame because I would love to just show you a couple cool moments and comment on how they played it, but obviously I can't. So you can check out that run or this run if you'd like to watch absolute insect glaive destruction, largely thanks to that essence dump attack that can go up through the head and into the wing arms and reach places us melee weapons mostly can't. Just like last week, it's incredibly efficient gameplay. But yep, I'm not going to show Zelvis's run, so let's go to first place, which is this light bowgun run with a 3 minute, 47 second clear and 89 milliseconds. It's like half a second faster than second place, but faster is faster. Once again, like I said with the bow, being able to maximize your ranged attacks for those optimal hit zones goes so far. But what I said with the heavy bowgun is that they're using flaming ammo, and I always wonder, like, why not pierce ammo? Would that not be better? Well, with the Ray Dow light bowgun, that's exactly what we're seeing here with this light bowgun run. The pierce ammo that is absolutely smashing through the head, down into the body, or even through the head and into the wing arms. Now, by making use of heroics as well, we're able to enhance that output in general, and with an early corrupted mantle, even further than that. Maximizing the gauge system to do the infinite burst step down the head and into the body. You're just looking at this massive wall of clustered DPS numbers throughout the entire fight. It must be so satisfying to get all those pops and so efficiently and effectively like this. As you might have expected at the super part, the player gets positioned in a nice safe area, rebuffs and sets it up, and then gets to just smack the exposed hanging there wing arm from massive DPS, where, like I said, melee users, we just have to stand there and look at it in most cases. Yeah, I've always found the pierce style of ranged weapons super satisfying and cool. This is just like the prime target for it. So go check out the run and see what you can learn. But there you have it. That's our current rankings of the current best speedruns of Shia. The top 3 are all under 4 minutes for the clear. We have a pile at under 5 minutes, getting closer and clear to 4 minutes. Only a couple weapons under that 5-minute time. With how efficient these players are playing though, it makes me wonder, are we going to get faster times, or are we now at the point where we're going to see like improvements of a few seconds at most? But it's great to see everyone just really honing the craft of one specific monster, and it's title updates that usually provide that kind of thing to look at. So very excited for Tile Update 2. For now then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.